Join me in this video on how to generate passive income with $1,000. Now, when you start thinking of passive income, a lot of people say it's a lie. A lot of people say that is passive income a myth. Overall, I do enjoy passive income from multiple sources, which is what we want to be covering in this video and showing with just $1,000 how you can start generating passive income. And of course, it is really smart to have multiple income streams to really build wealth. When you start looking at big picture, when you have a primary job, you are getting a paycheck. If anything should happen to that primary job, unfortunately, the paycheck does stop. That is the reason, and that is really the big thing where passive income generation does come in, being able to supplement your income without having a lot of money. Now, of course, you have to think exponentially where if you start with 1,000, if you really put this at 10,000, if you put this at 100,000, when you start building passive income and of course, generation of passive income on top of each other, these are some really cool ways to think of it just with a basic $1,000 as your building block and as your starting point to generate that passive income. First one we look at is investing in property that you can rent out. Now, of course, this may not be buying an apartment building, but there are a lot of options. And this was one that I was pretty interested in, using $1,000 to build a shed, a detached garage, a parking space, anything that is going to improve your home, not only improving value or adding value, but you can also utilize that space as a rental or a parking spot that can generate income. Now, I know this is kind of interesting to see, but when you start thinking of the larger cities, when you start thinking of the hundreds of dollars a month that storage units are really generating, this could be pretty cool for a lot of people that need extra workspace, need extra storage space, need extra parking space. This could really be profitable in a lot of different markets. Second one we look at in investing in real estate trusts. Now, of course, this is REITs. When we think of real estate trusts, if you're unfamiliar by these investments by law must pay cash flow to their investors. So what this is larger companies are buying real estate and do own real estate. By law, they are required to pay cash flow out to the investors. Investing $1,000 in these real estate companies, when you look at some of the bigger ones, again, you're talking shopping malls, you're talking casinos, billboards, grocery stores, office buildings, movie theaters. Majority of the larger companies that you see do not own their own property. And of course, in turn, they're not responsible for maintenance of their property. They do have a company that provides all of those benefits for them, and they rent the building that they are utilizing. And of course, looking at some of the REITs, you can receive anywhere from 4% all the way up to 17% in annual income. When you think about outperforming the S&P 500 at 10%, even looking at some of the tech stocks, 17% in an annual income is pretty good. And of course, when you start accumulating that, starting with 1,000 compounding over a year, you can really start generating a lot of passive income. And the more that you have to invest in this investment vehicle, the more return you're going to be seeing. Now, of course, one of my absolute favorite, investing in the stock market. When you start looking at this is a great time, but it is also a long-term investment. Putting money into the stock market can provide and does provide some passive income when you think about that first $1,000. When you look at a brokerage account like M1 Finance, when you look at Webull, when you look at Robinhood, which I have links down for those below, you can really pick up some ETFs. Now, of course, we talk a lot about the exchange traded funds, but when you start looking at some of the dividend or the passive income generation outside of like your VOOs, the S&P 500, because those have a relatively low return when it comes to the passive income. But when we start looking at like the VYM, the Vanguard high dividend yield, when you start looking at the HG, the Charles Schwab, again, the dividend generation of some of these ETFs can be massive. The average yield on the stock market is about 2% over 20 years, and the stock market has never lost money. That is something to note. We have stock market ups, we have downs like we've seen over the last week, but when you look at any time frame, the stock market over a 10-year, 20-year, 30-year time frame has not produced and does not produce negative money. It is a lot more of the set it and forget it with the ETFs because they offer you not only passive income, but also you can see your appreciation go ahead and build as the companies within those ETFs do get more valuable. You're seeing some of that passive income generation. On top of that, with a lot of these ETFs, you have instant diversification because when you're investing in these ETFs, not only the risk appetite or the risk profile is much bigger because you're invested in all of these companies, which of course gives you the diversification just by design. Now, of course, if you have that $1,000 and you're thinking of that baby emergency fund, Dave Ramsey, step one of the 7 baby steps to financial freedom, really looking at this, putting it into a high yield savings account or a CD. Now, if you want the guaranteed returns, this is the safe money. When you think of these high yield savings accounts like through M1 Finance, that is offering you a 5% guaranteed return that they have right now. When you start looking at CD rates, they're 5.25, maybe even 5.5 on some places. Putting your money in some of these are provide more of a safe, but still very secure. Now, a majority of these accounts, when you start looking at the high yield financial institutions, when you start looking at the institutions offering CDs, the other thing to remember is they are FDIC'd for banking industry. They are NCUA insured for the credit unions. So regardless of where you are, make sure that they have the protection and making sure that your money is safe, not only to generate that passive income, but again, when you start scaling this. So you start with 1,000, then you get a little bit of, passive income, you get a little bit of returns, get up to 10,000, and of course you're getting a much bigger snowball. Once you get to 100,000, it is the pivotal point. The $100,000 mark is the absolute game changer. That is the point where you can really feel, and it does feel like real money. Trust me, when my portfolio hit that 100,000 mark, it was really, really interesting to see how much money and really how much you're generating when it comes to some of this passive income that I'm getting from these ETFs and also from the high yield savings account that I have with M1 Finance. And the last one on here, lending your money to peers. Now, this, of course, does come with a little bit more of a risk factor. Peer-to-peer lending sites, when you look at Lending Club, when you think of Prosper, they will lend small amounts to multiple borrowers, diversifying your risk because you're not taking and lending your money to your brother or to your mom or to anyone. They diversify the risk across multiple borrowers. And of course, that increases the possible rewards. Now, you have to be really careful for this because lending money through these sites, you get your $1,000 back plus interest. This is peer-to-peer lending. Now, of course, when it comes to this peer-to-peer lending, again, you have to really do your research because there can also be losses that can be incurred with this. The money is not insured or guaranteed because if you're lending the money out and all of a sudden, a lot of people start defaulting on these high interest loans, of course, it's going to be very hard to pay you back when the people that they lent the money to is not paying back the money themselves. Can make a big difference. And like I said, when you start looking at this, and honestly, probably one of the coolest things to see, go on Google, go on Bing, go on wherever you do your search engine, look for a dividend calculator to really see the passive income generation. And you'll see when you start looking at dividend calculators, when you start looking at compounding interest calculators, when you start putting more money into this, you can literally snowball. Even if you start with $100 a month to get that first 1,000, you are starting the journey. It is really about the very, very first step when you start investing. And of course, I always say pay yourself first. Before I look at the baby steps, before I turn to Dave Ramsey, I always think, hey, get that employer match. Employer match, of course, is guaranteed 100% return. It'll go up, it'll go down. But overall, if you're skipping out on that, you're getting, even skipping out on it for 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, which is what I see. The reason, definitely, you're getting that 100% return. You might be paying 25% on a credit card, but you're getting that 100% return on that employer match. And of course, for a lot of people where it takes a lot more time to get invested and really start that snowball rolling, you start it a lot earlier, which means if you are seeing some pretty good growth on there, you're making your regular contributions while you're eliminating the debt, it is going to be a game changer for you, your family, your generational wealth, and for the rest of your life. So guys, that is how to generate passive income with just $1,000, and I'll catch you in the next video.